If you've experienced breakthroughs in your healing, but then in your day-to-day life, nothing has really changed, this video is for you. You're still experiencing the same patterns and the same struggles in relationships, in your career, in your personal life. Despite all of the work that you've been putting into yourself, it's just not carrying over into your everyday, day-to-day experiences. This could be why. So in this video, we'll talk about what I mean when I say daily inner work and integration into your daily life, what this actually means, why it's so important to do daily inner work and to do the integration steps of healing, and how you can apply this idea of daily inner work and healing integration into any area of your everyday, day-to-day life in 2 simple steps. But first, welcome to this channel. I am so happy to have you here. We talk about spirituality, inner work, self-healing, themes of consciousness, yoga, and everything related. So if you vibe with any of that, please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps. Skipping this essential part of healing could be what's keeping you from true and lasting changes. So when we do a powerful healing exercise, like we do breath work, we do yoga, we go to talk therapy, and we have a breakthrough. Maybe during that healing exercise, at the end, you feel so good, you feel so changed and uplifted, and you feel like you're ready to live differently now. You are ready to embrace this new version of yourself. But then you go back into your everyday life and you get sucked back into those old patterns, and you wonder, how is it that that process felt so good and I felt so freed and liberated from this? And now it's almost like I never even did it. The change just wasn't lasting. Often we might think to blame the healing process that we did, the breath work, the yoga, the conversation that we had with our therapist. Maybe it just didn't actually get to the root after all. Maybe there's still more healing to be done. And that is true. There is more healing to be done. But you don't need a whole nother process. And it wasn't that that healing experience wasn't enough, or that that healing experience just didn't work for you. It's just that you're missing the final piece, which is the daily inner work and integration. And this is not something that your therapist or your yoga teacher or your breathwork instructor can come into your life and coach you through day to day. Often this step gets missed out because it's up to us to do it. It's up to us to keep ourselves accountable. It's up to us to implement these daily steps to integrate that healing. And this is why this step gets so often missed or not quite done in the best way that it possibly could be. But the good news is that it is not hard to do. It's actually really, really easy, because the hardest part of the healing is over. Now you just have the little bits and pieces to pick up afterwards. And once you learn how to do this, it won't take long before it becomes something you just naturally do. It will become just a part of your life that you won't have to think about anymore. So this is a really essential piece of knowledge and wisdom that will help you with all of your future healing and just your life in general. And yeah, it would be great if healing was just one and done. You just went to a Reiki session and you're healed spontaneously. You went to a really great yoga class and wow, that whole subconscious pattern and program that was holding you back for so many years is just gone. But that's not the reality. That's something that our egos really want to believe. It's something that we really want to believe. But it's just not the truth. So I want you to imagine that inner work and spirituality and self-healing is actually the same as physical healing. So imagine that you have a physical wound on your body. The first thing that you need to do is expose the wound. This is like bringing awareness to the wound, understanding what happened. How did this wound get here? Is it a broken bone? Is it a cut? Is it a burn? What kind of wound are we dealing with here, and how did it happen? This is the first step to healing physically. It's the same for an emotional, a mental, or a spiritual wound as well. So once you understand what the wound is and what has caused it, then you need to perform surgery of some kind. Maybe it's a really minor surgery, maybe it is a really extensive surgery, or maybe you need a couple of surgeries. And in terms of the mental, emotional, spiritual healing, surgery is the feeling it, it's the processing it, it's the being there with it. It's the going into the wound, not just patching it over. Imagine you have like an open wound on your body and you've got all of this kind of like dirt and debris in there that's built up because you haven't tended to the wound in a few years. And so what you want to do is go into it, feel it. It's clearing it out so that it can properly heal without any of the remaining debris, the remaining gunk that has been stuck in there. And this part is really the really intense part of healing. It's the heavy lifting. It is the part that so many of us would actually really benefit from external help with, because it's so icky, it's so difficult, and it requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, a lot of tenderness and love and care, and it can be really intricate. And now after surgery for a physical wound, what do? Well, we'd stitch it back up and we'd apply some kind of aftercare to it. Maybe you've got some kind of lotions, maybe you've got dressings that need to be changed every day or every few days. Maybe you need to take some kind of medication or something to help the wound heal after that surgery. And this is what daily inner work is. And eventually, after doing all of the aftercare, after helping that wound to come back together to wholeness, to fully heal over, then the wound is gone. Maybe there's a scar, who knows, but the wound itself is now healed and reconciled, and it won't necessarily come back up. But without this aftercare, what's going to happen to the wound? It's going to stay open. It's going to stay unresolved. It might even become infected or get worse in some way, and you might need to go back in for another surgery. And this exact same thing happens to us on a mental and emotional level as well. So the goal of daily inner work is to help that wound fully close over and fully heal so that triggers actually can't get in anymore, right? It's like the wound is shut and a trigger comes and tries to get in, and it can't because the skin is healed over. So to illustrate this, I'm going to use an example. Let's say that you have been working on your feelings of guilt. So first you bring awareness to what this feeling of guilt is, where it came from, how it shows up in you, in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. You bring your awareness to it. You make the unconscious guilt that's been playing out in your life, you make it conscious, you bring it to the front of your mind. Then you do a healing process, you do some kind of journaling or talking. So maybe in this example, you realize that your guilt is actually coming from a place of people pleasing. And then through this healing process, you realize that you don't need to people please to be loved or accepted or safe in this world. You can actually just be yourself. And so after this healing process, life and the universe will give you experiences that symbolically represent whatever you're working on in that moment. It's like the universe has seen you sit down and say, I really don't want to feel guilty anymore. I really want to heal this wound of guilt. And the universe will gift you these opportunities where you get to enact something different. For example, the next day after you've had this realization about your guilt, you might go to work and someone says something like, oh, you really should have done that differently. And that comment triggers your guilt. And instead of having to go through another massive process and surgery around this again, you take this moment, this one comment that you weren't expecting at work that's just re-triggered this wound. You take that as an opportunity to integrate all of that hard work you've put in. So the first step is to notice the bubbling up of the old behavior. When that trigger happens, what happens inside you? That part of you that wants to feel guilty comes back up. It wants to bring you down. It wants to feel hurt. It wants to feel like it's not enough. See how that comment has triggered that guilt within you that you've been working on. See it for what it is, as an old wound being reopened, trying to be reopened. And in that moment, your choice is to apply the healing balm, change the dressing, redo the stitches, take your medication, do whatever you need to re-soothe that wound to help it to heal again. And the second step is to choose a new path. Here's your chance to remember what you've learned about your guilt and what you've realized about it during that original healing process. This is your chance to remember to go down the new path rather than the old path again and again. So in this example, if your guilt has been triggered, you might decide to tell yourself, I am good enough just as I am. I'm just doing the best that I can in every moment. And I'm loved even when I make mistakes. Maybe after you have soothed yourself and reminded yourself what you've learned about your guilt, you respond to that person in a totally new way. Maybe instead of responding with, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so bad, I'm so terrible at this, oh, why do I even have this job, I'm not worth it. Instead of responding with that energy, instead you respond, maybe it's something like, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't know. I'll totally try and do better next time. And you responding differently in that moment is you shifting timelines. It's you just taking that 30 seconds to apply the healing balm or change the bandage on your wound so that you can respond to life in a new way. And doing this immediately speeds up the healing process and allows you to move on with your life, physically embodying, not just learning about it and intellectualizing it and knowing about it, having awareness of it, but actually living it. And when you do this, you are stepping into a whole new version of yourself. You are altering the trajectory of your life. The truth is, the universe always wants to progress. It always wants to grow. The universe wants nothing more than for every single human to reach a state of true peace, happiness, fulfillment, and love. So it's actually in the universe's best interest to give you exactly what you need to heal. And the great thing is, these opportunities will always be something that you can handle. The universe will never give you anything that you are not ready for. So you can know that if you're being triggered in your life, it's because you're ready to deal with it. It's because you are ready to embrace this new version of you. The universe will always give you challenges that are just enough to help you push past those old wounds and those old patterns and step into the new reality. And these triggers will always be easier than the original wounds. It will be the exact same wound on an energetic and symbolic level, but it will just be on a smaller scale. And it will be in your mundane, everyday life. There's a Buddhist and Tantric teaching that is to see everyone as your guru. Healing is not just on your yoga mat or with your therapist. Healing is actually in every single everyday moment. This is how mundane moments become these massive opportunities for you to heal. And so along with this, healing is actually really predictable. If you decide you want to work on a wound, you can actually expect and predict that that wound will be triggered in the coming days, weeks, months, and you don't have to be afraid of the unexpected anymore, because you know once you've decided to work on something, you've decided to heal something, the universe will gift you these perfect symbolic opportunities for you to fully integrate that healing. And you'll start to see these little opportunities for healing popping up in your everyday life. And you can actually prepare yourself for these moments beforehand by having a morning routine, for example, or daily affirmations where you remind yourself every day of what you're currently working on and what you need to remember in the moments when you get triggered. So you can actually prepare for the triggers in your everyday life by remembering that the universe will give you these opportunities, and by reminding yourself how you'd like to show up with this new path, this new reality. Another great thing is once you walk the new path once or twice, maybe it's a few more than once or twice, it totally depends on the wound itself. But once you do it just a few times and you do it really well, you probably won't have to do that again. You won't be faced with that trigger again because the universe can see you've got it. You've fully reconciled it. You have fully healed it. Book closed. Because once you feel at peace with this situation, the universe has no need to present you with these healing opportunities or triggers anymore. Or the experience and the trigger will actually repeat, but you just won't even notice it because you're so at peace with that wound. Or you'll actually stop subconsciously attracting that situation in the first place. Healing is just remembering the truth of who we are a little more every day, and then forgetting and then remembering a little bit more. Daily inner work is helping yourself remember more and more every day. As we heal and integrate our wounds in everyday mundane moments, this is when a life of true freedom and lasting happiness becomes possible. May this knowledge of daily inner work take your healing to a whole new level. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe and leave any questions you have in the comments. I really appreciate you being here. Namaste.